Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Resilient Advisor Show. My name is Jay Coulter, and joining me once again is Tyrone Ross, the CEO of Onramp Invest. This is part of our Crypto Office Hours series.
Our mission at Resilient Advisor is to have a significant impact on the retirement crisis by educating and empowering financial advisors to better serve their clients. We bring you industry thought leaders and experts to help you make a difference in the lives of your clients. This show is sponsored by Capital Wealth Planning, providing covered call solutions for financial advisors. To learn more about their SMAs or ETF, visit capitalwealthplanning.com.
Tyrone has been a regular contributor here on the Resilient Advisor Show, and typically we talk about Bitcoin and its applications for financial advisors. You know, Tyrone, I was thinking in prepping for this show, we started this in the fall of last year. Bitcoin was around $10,000, and I was just starting to get a couple of questions. And you had already established yourself as a thought leader on Bitcoin in our industry. But man, things have changed so fast in just the last 6 or 7 months. And it's not just the price, it's the adoption in the industry. Tell me, what has stood out to you the most the last 6 months in the industry?
That is a really good question. I have to admit, I haven't really been like all struck by much, because if you've been in this space, you've seen this coming, right? When in 2018 and 19, there was that lull and it was going to zero, whatever. There was so many wonderful things happening. So it was only a matter of time. What did stick out to me though, in this, and again, not a shock, but did stick out was I honestly get 1 or 2 DMs or texts from financial advisors every day. This didn't happen in 2017, right? In that run up. So a lot of advisors now, I'm talking to CIOs of large RAs, individual advisors, like they're really figuring out this whole world that is out there. And a lot of those year-end reviews, they figured out their clients own a lot of crypto. So, but as far as the names and everything that's coming in, you knew it was going to happen if you've been around. So no shocks really. Just really, really impressed with how it's come more from, you know, the institutional side, so to speak.
Yeah, so it's interesting. We have completely different perspectives, and it's partly a generational gap, right? So I'm Gen X. Most of my clients are the late baby boomers or Gen X themselves, and this seemingly did come out of nowhere to them. Yeah. But what's been interesting to me is the quick adoption that we've seen. Again, not suggesting that everybody go out and buy Bitcoin, but the interest in people to learn about it, especially as they're, like you mentioned, they're understanding now that their clients were allocating to it last year and they probably weren't even telling them about it.
Yeah. I have to I don't know if I disagree, because I don't think this is what you were saying. I don't think we've reached mass adoption. I think we've reached mass awareness, right? And I think we've reached mass awareness of people just, it's in the lexicon, it's all over the place. More people are hearing about it. This isn't this mass exodus of people now running to buy Bitcoin. I think it's the awareness comes before the adoption. Now, when you do get into institutional side, I do think there's been this adoption, right? You're starting to see a lot of legacy names. Howard Marks put it in the paper, right? Which I wanted to see. He's still like, don't get it, but my son is on it. Ray Dalio, right? He spoke about it. Really interesting technology. Still don't really get the rest of it, right? BlackRock. And you know, the rest of the gang, fill it in, right? Elon doing what he did. Like, these are all things that are happening now where it's like, oh, well, more company. Who's the next company to put it on their balance sheet? And things like that, where it's come mostly from that side. But I think it's more mass awareness than mass adoption. But I get it. I can see the mass adoption side.
Yeah, I like that construct of looking at it through mass awareness versus mass adoption, because there's definitely awareness now. And sure, awareness does still require a tremendous amount of education. One thing that I've noticed is this Dogecoin army that's out there on social media is creating some real challenges. I had a chance to ask your friend Matt Hougan his thoughts on Dogecoin, and I want to play you the clip and then get your thoughts.
Funny. I mean, Dogecoin was created sort of as a joke, pointing to the excesses of the crypto market. It's based on that dog, which you're showing there. It's not a serious coin. It's not a coin where there's significant development activity. It's not trying to solve major societal problems. It's sort of like a joke. Now, the issue with it is its existence and the fact that Elon Musk is talking about it sort of colors people's opinions about crypto.
What are your thoughts on his analysis of Bitcoin and what it's doing to people's analysis and thoughts of Bitcoin?
Well, I've learned in my short career in the crypto space is that you rarely debate Matt Hougan unless it's about a Bitcoin ETF. But I agree with him there. I think, you know, he has a very clear, lucid way of explaining these things. And I think that's exactly right. I've gotten the text messages about it. I've gotten, you know, tagged, it's better than Bitcoin or whatever. But I do think what happens is, especially with the coins that are cheaper in price, people see value there because they look at Bitcoin and go, oh, it's $56,000. I can't afford one of those, right? And there's still an education here that needs to be had, right, and distributed mass awareness and adoption of education. Because I think someone tagged me in a post. I think it was a friend of mine that I ran track with, and he's like, oh, you know, it's way cheaper than shares of Bitcoin. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even continue the argument. I'm like, all right. So you're saying shares of Bitcoin still or whatever. So I think what we need to do in this space, those of us that know, need to humble ourselves, right? Eat humble pie, as my mother would say, and realize there's still people coming too and need to learn, right? There's two types of ignorance. Ignorance, I just don't know, or ignorance, I told you and you don't care, right? And there are a lot of people coming and they just don't know. So to Matt's point, if they really looked up how Dogecoin started and the story behind it, they wouldn't be so quick to throw, you know, their hard-earned money at it. But it's not serious. And I don't think it's something that folks should really mess around with. But, you know, it's not going to go away because you got folks like Elon memeing it to death. So here we are, crypto 2021.
Which really brings me to my diversification question for you. So say you're an advisor and you have clients that bought some Bitcoin. They've enjoyed this ride up. They're talking about diversification and they see the Dogecoin. They see some of these other coins that are out there and they, you know, maybe start to think, hey, we should diversify a little bit. Maybe they've seen one of my shows with Matt Hougan. What are your thoughts on how to build a constructive discussion with a client about diversifying your crypto exposure?
I would let those advisors know that on February 26th, the SEC News put out a risk alert to investment advisors that included a list of things that they should be paying attention to based on the audits that they've done and what they found. And I would caution every advisor, like I always have, and we've done this, you better go back and reprofile your client. Risk tolerance, investor policy statement, financial plan. If rebalancing into Dogecoin is part of that plan and it fits in the client's risk tolerance, great. But if you look at some of the things that the SEC brought up in that valuation methodologies, right? What is your reasoning, your policies and procedures? What is your methodology behind choosing these specific coins that you are advising your clients on? Custody, of course, right? Regulatory procedures internally. And, right, your overall ADV makeup construct of you updating these things to give advice. They are going to want to know why you said, first of all, why you were giving advice on Bitcoin, but you advised you were okay with the clients rebalancing into Dogecoin. Why? Right? Mm-hmm. Not that it's a bad thing. And I think the tools and resources that are out there now are adequate for advisors to have some constructive conversations. Not the best, but I would definitely point them right back to that risk alert before you open your mouth, or even on Bitcoin now, right? That stopped our industry. When that came out, Hester Pierce tweeted that. And I was actually in a pitch meeting and we were off it. And I was like, uh-oh. Now, the beautiful thing is Onramp solves for all of those. But I would caution advisors to look at that before a client comes in or those next reviews and say, all right, are we really in line with if the SEC walks in here tomorrow to continue to give advice in the way that we should in the best interest as fiduciaries for our clients?
Yeah. And in a few minutes, I want to get to how Onramp helps solve for that. Let's take a look at a tweet that I saw earlier this morning. And so again, as a novice, I've built a list on Twitter of, thought leaders, including yourself, and organizations that put out not hype, but actual good educational material on Bitcoin and the crypto space. CoinDesk is one of them. Today, they put out something on MicroStrategy, purchasing an additional $15 million worth of Bitcoin at $57,000 a coin. Tyrone, what is your take on companies like this using Bitcoin on their corporate balance sheet?
I have to admit, I get it from, again, I love Bitcoin. I understand it. I get, that Mr. Saylor is a very brilliant individual, smarter than I'll ever be in 10 lifetimes. I do feel like that's a bit much. And I do feel like the responsibility and the stakeholders and the shareholders, you have to look at all of that. And maybe he's saying, you know what, I'm being a good steward of our cash. And when you look over time what the government is doing and so on and so forth, I completely get his argument. I'm not on board as that being like this. Yeah, is Apple next? Right? Like, I'm not there yet. Right. And to that point, though, and I've been saying that if an Apple and IBM or Johnson & Johnson or whoever does it, then I'll pay a little bit, you know what I mean? And I know Square has and, Tesla, but when the companies that we know that are General Mills, right? If General Mills says, hey, we're putting, 100 million into Bitcoin, right? What is most important is this, which doesn't get the headlines. When Mr. Saylor endeavored to move in size to accumulate the Bitcoin that he has, he realized some discrepancies in the market. I have a webinar coming out with FTSE Russell and the good folks at Digital Asset Research, where they quote where he was talking about the price discovery and the liquidity of the Bitcoin market, how a lot of that is, right? So, I like to look at those headlines and then distill it down into, okay, what is it really exposing in the market, right? And I'm not there yet to be like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. I'm just not. I get why he's doing it. And I think we'll start to see more of that over time. But I don't know. He's risking a lot there. You know what I mean? And he's smarter than me. So he's essentially turned them into a Bitcoin ETF. So I get it, but I would be a little nervous if I was anyway affiliated with that company.
Yeah, Tyrone, that's why I like having you on the show. You're not a Bitcoin cheerleader at all costs. There are risks. It's an investment. It's something that you're allocating to an old timer like myself. It almost seems like a gimmick. It reminds me of 1999 when people would announce a .com aspect of their business to try and help save their valuations without adding any enterprise value. And that type of noise takes away from the real value of what Bitcoin and the blockchain can represent for folks, I think. And you do a good job of distilling the difference between the two.
I appreciate you. Yeah, and you're right. And those concerns are valid.
Yeah. All right. So Cointelegraph put out an article today that shocked me. I live in the state of Georgia. Students in Georgia are set to be taught crypto at the high school level. I guess it passed the state legislature. I got to be honest with you, I'm a little shocked. I don't think they actually teach real financial literacy in the state of Georgia. But now there's talk about adding Bitcoin literacy at the high school level. What are your thoughts on that? Is that even necessary at this stage in the evolution of Bitcoin?
Well, it's funny when you put me onto this news, and any type of financial, everyone knows that I'm a financial education warrior. I love it, right? And one of the things that I did say is what I love about Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is the gravity of change, and you're seeing it there. So if Bitcoin is going to pull Georgia into the 21st century and get kids access to all types of financial education, I'm for it. But if they're truly going to teach kids or anybody on Bitcoin, what you start to realize is there is a lesson in economics and monetary policy and history, right? In science and math and philosophy and all of these other things where I think if they do it right, they can pull Bitcoin apart and teach some really interesting lessons, right? History lessons, money lessons, financial lessons, right? And start to broaden the scope of what money is. So I'm excited by that. I do think they should have reversed it, right? Let's just go back to what the hell is money, right? Like in a credit card and a checking account and things like that. But listen, get my love for Bitcoin, my love for kids, my love for education is great. Hopefully Georgia brings me down to be able to do it. I'd love to give a class on it.
Awesome. And that's a great dovetail into the last thing I wanted to talk about today. This morning, Matt Hougan put out a tweet, and I'm going to read it for podcast listeners. That said, people don't talk enough about the permissionless nature DeFi can accelerate innovation. Imagine if entrepreneurs could build on the installed infrastructure of the New York Stock Exchange or JP Morgan without structuring a joint venture. The compounding of innovation in DeFi is going to blow people away. Tyrone, explain that to financial advisors that still haven't grasped the magnitude of what this new technology will bring.
Yeah, I will take financial advisors back to, and I got the tweets. I was just actually looking them up back to, I want to say it was 2018 when I was tweeting about stable coins, AKA crypto dollars, which is a better name. And I was encouraging financial advisors, because I don't want advisors to focus on DeFi and the yams and the sushi and all these other weird yield farming. Leave that alone. Come here with me. Come around the campfire, advisors. Let me talk to you. In 2018, I was talking about stable coins, right? Crypto dollars, which were, on the Ethereum blockchain at the time, and they've extended, but right, for the purpose of Ethereum and smart contracts and all that other stuff, programmable money, right? I was telling financial advisors, think of stable coins as your money market account. A client is going to rebalance out of Bitcoin, as you were saying, and they should move into stable coins. Stable, right? Money market, my Fidelity money market, right? We'll have a stable coin component to it, USDC or whatever. Look it up. Then the DeFi component comes in where a financial advisor says, okay, well, Fidelity is giving me 0 point nothing on my client's cash. My client could then take these stable coins, or I can do it, it's coming, and take that into the decentralized finance space where you have the ability to take those stable coins and earn a higher yield. Now, the first thing advisors say is counterparty risk. Who am I trading with, right? So think of DeFi this way. Crypto, right? Bitcoin is peer-to-peer, J to Tyrone. DeFi, which is peer-to-pool, pooled assets, right? So that is why you are getting some of those tremendous yields there. Also, when you collateralize and do all those things, it's like 150%, right? 200% you got to put up. So and again, don't want to get into the calculus of it. But what then is going to happen for advisors and why DeFi is so fascinating, and I've been saying for financial advisors, the future of our business is being built on Ethereum right before our eyes. Now, stable coins as a money market as part of DeFi means that a financial advisor is going to be able to get the client meaningful yield, and you can get safe yield, 3 to 5%. Doesn't have to be the 30% that you see. A relatively, again, and I'm saying safe, right? Safe yield where the client, the advisor knows the counterparties, everything is protected, right? Anchorage, which is the first true crypto bank, qualified custodian, bank charter, they're going to be doing this. That is why I think advisors should be focused on DeFi right now. They can get that part. The yams and the yield farming and the staking and all of the stuff, wait on that, right? There's an education staff. But to Matt's point, the DeFi space is fascinating. Here's why I love DeFi. DeFi, again, for the underserved, we are no longer saying unbanked and underbanked for folks out there. It is a trope and it is demeaning. Underserved. DeFi for the underserved is basically community banking. It is unbelievable what this is going to mean for the underserved people in this country. That I'm excited for, and advisors could also get excited for right now. Borrowing, lending, again, community-based, banking. It is unbelievable what is going on DeFi, and I'm all in, as is Matt.
Tyrone, we weren't going to talk about this, but I'd like to go deeper on that. Tyrone, what does DeFi do for the underbanked, underserved community?
So, again, I use this example because it's very important. I am Guyanese. I'm Caribbean. All my Caribbean folks out there will feel me on this one. My dad, my uncles, a lot of other folks that come to this country that are Caribbean are familiar with something called a susu, right? A susu is, all right, Tyrone and Jay both need $200, but we only have $100 a piece. So we're going to pool our money, right? So, and then if we get a couple other people to put in $100, what they call a hand, you put your hand is $100. Follow me here. This is really important. Come around the campfire, kids. So we get 10 people to put in $100. Now we are all going to get that $1,000, right? And then there's the schedule of when I'm going to get it. I don't need it right away. I'll take mine last. You'll get yours first because you need to pay your rent now. And then because we all trust each other, we don't have to go to a bank. Wait a minute. What does this sound like? This blockchain thingy. Trustless. I know you. You know me. We're from the same. You have needs. I have needs. I don't have to go through this whole background check with you, right? This started in the 16th century with West African slaves, by the way. So now when folks come to this country that are Caribbean, they do susu so they can get their first house. They can get an apartment. They can pay rent. They can do all of these things and they pool their money. The money goes in, the money comes out, right? And it's this community-based banking that is now been moved to DeFi, which is very similar. Go back to what I was saying, peer to pool, right? Now, there's a lot more nuance when you add technology and the layers to it. So now take that technology into those communities where folks know they don't have to walk into the bank. It's truly decentralized. I can take my crypto dollars or the money that I have on a gift card and convert it to get access to these pools of capital and then get meaningful return. Again, not ever having to walk into the bank, but what we talk about how there's this, there's discrepancy and discrimination on loans. If I need a loan, I don't have to come up with this really long story and process and business plan and my credit score, and I can go right here for a loan, community banking, right? If I want to borrow, community banking, right? If I need an account and I need to do that right on my phone, community banking, right? DeFi, right on my phone. The most important part is this. In these communities, whether it's urban or rural, that lack infrastructure, that are financially redlined, as I call it. If I don't have to go to payday lenders, check cashing places, the post office, I can do that right from my phone. One, that saves me time and money. And two, I don't have to drag my children 3 buses across a gang zone or shootouts or wait in line forever. I can do that right from my phone. What people need to realize with crypto is this. It gives people time back. Forget the crypto. If you come from the bottom and you spend hours making your money, hours waiting on your money, days waiting on your money, hours waiting in line to access your money, this gives you your time back and the ability to do it right from a device. That is incredibly powerful. Don't make it about Bitcoin or DeFi, making it about the time back that people have when all they are doing is spending their time to live.
Excellent explanation on how that can help the underserved community.
Sure.
Let's go to the opposite end of the spectrum and talk NFTs.
Yeah.
So could you please, for the uninitiated, which includes myself, explain what is an NFT and why we're seeing such crazy numbers in the space?
You mean the Beeple that was sold for 68 million yesterday or whatever? We're in the wrong business, Jay.
No, I wonder if we could NFT our shows.
Yeah, you should. You absolutely should. This episode. So at Onramp, we put out a report on non-fungible tokens because a lot of financial advisors were texting me and they were all into it, right? And the main one being Top Shot, NBA Top Shot, where it's like these digital basketball cards. So non-fungible token, again, our audience is very well versed. We don't have to explain what fungible means, right? A one of one, right? And what it allows you to do is to take anything, a tweet, a painting, your song, put it in the structure and sell it. And that person has a one of one, only that. What is interesting about NFTs, to Matt's point, is the creator of an NFT gets paid on every secondary sale in perpetuity, which is interesting. The other part of NFTs, now again, mainly on the Ethereum blockchain, but you have Flow, which the Top Shot uses, NBA Top Shot, which is cheaper and it makes it a lot easier because you have these gas fees on Ethereum. Don't want to get into that, which makes it expensive to do these things. So what it is allowing creators, entertainers, artists, basketball players, and I actually was, blessed enough to speak recently with the NBA Players Association. The players actually get a piece of these NFTs when they're sold, right? They get a piece of that, like if their dunk, right, was done. So it is funny. Josh Brown did his whole thing clowning it, right? And how it's just like, oh, I got this JPEG. Do you want it? Right? Like I can sell it to you, whatever. So it is a lot of hype. There is a lot of money floating around in the world now. People have nothing better to do, but I think it is going to unlock a lot of value for rappers, right? I've seen a lot of rappers now are taking their songs or albums, right? A lot of artists now are releasing albums that way. So it's going to change the game. But a lot of what we're seeing is inflated in terms of some of these prices that are being paid for some of these things. But basically, all it is just an ability for someone to create a one of one, right? And supposed to be one of one, right? Right? And have the other person buying that, being able to store it and keep it, and whether it's a digital signature or a real signature, right? From that creator, you have the only one of that. So again, not prime time for financial advisors, something that a lot of advisors are in. I know a lot of advisors text me because they were doing the NBA Top Shot thing with their kids and getting the, LeBron James dunk or something like that, and experimenting with, the blockchain and Ethereum and things like that, which is cool to see. But it's still early, and this evolved. Now, you want to talk about the space evolving from the crypto kitties, right, which was the first version of this, and it was very dun 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 dun, right? Like it was right. And now, 2 years later, you're starting to see a really built up version of that, and it will continue to evolve. It's not going away. This is the future. You got Christie's involved already, right? Like it's not going away. And is going to create a lot of value and a lot of wealth for creators and entertainers and folks like that.
Hey, Christie's doesn't get involved if there's not money. I'm curious because I haven't done the research. What about baseball cards? You're talking about basketball. Is that going to change the baseball card industry over time?
Yes, I would be, again, as my mother would say, I bet you dollars to donuts that the Major League Baseball right now doesn't have a whole group of smart interns trying to figure this out, right? Yeah. How do we tokenize Mike Trout, right? And get, digital baseball cards, but that's coming to that point, right? Especially because Major League, I'm not a baseball fan, right? There's a lot of things about Major League Baseball that bothers me, but they're having a demographics issue. They're not capturing a younger audience. They'd be foolish if they didn't jump on this, right? Because it is just like folks that grew up in our age, baseball cards was the thing. Everything for these kids are digital now. Their video games, money, right? Their identity, everything is digital. So you better hop on the train, Major League Baseball, and you might be able to get a little more color in your sport too. But that's a whole other story.
Oh, man. Well, you're definitely right about the demographics in baseball, not just the color, but the age. I mean, it's hard
for sure.
Yeah. Let's talk about Onramp. What's new at Onramp Invest? Why do advisors need to be paying attention?
Man, so excited. There's so much to say. I can't get to it all, but the main thing is we are right now in the middle of seed raise. So we're raising our seed raise round. We have some really big names involved already that I can't say. All I will say is this: we've cracked the code, and there's some systems that advisors use are familiar with. A few that we are playing ball with to get them to understand. So a lot of the tools for advisors are around Fort Knox. We are getting into Fort Knox. We are getting into your workflow, right? We are going to provide read-only view, right, to those accounts that a client holds away from you at Coinbase or Gemini, and pull that into your existing system to be able to model and plan and build and give advice. And we also, I can't mention it now, but we are working on solving custody for RIAs, not in the terms of qualified custodians, but the ability for those things to talk, seamless account opening. We're right there. So we're incredibly excited. We got some massive announcements coming. But you know, we did have a small raise, and you know, there's some folks in there worth mentioning. Anthony Pompliano was in our initial round. Jason Wank, Stephanie Bogan, who was in there. I mean, you name it.
Some small names, Tyrone. Just
small names,
small industry players. Yeah.
But I will say this: here's what's most exciting about it. There is an opportunity now to create the whole world in crypto that you as an advisor, myself and as advisor, are used to now. And that is the ability to interact with Bitcoin, because we're doing Bitcoin initially, the same way you would Apple, not even thinking about it, logging in, buying, selling, rebalancing, modeling, and it's just there. You're not even thinking about it. But also being able to get best in class research, to get real-time pricing data, right? All of these things we're going to provide to advisors, and we're going to roll it out slowly, right? And what we realized when we started to do this was the space just isn't ready for prime time to get all of these systems to talk, and the financial planning software versus the portfolio management software versus the custodians versus the account opening versus what the custodian needs versus what you can pull back into the systems and overnight files and all of these different things that our vendor, I got to call them resource partners. Cheryl Penny told me not to say vendors anymore. Resource partners, right? The resource partners that we're going to be working with to make sure that we are building to their needs, right? And what they need to service their clients and what advisors need. So we're super excited. Like we've cracked the code for advisors, by advisors, research, data, workflow integration, planning tools, risk assessments. We are elated. We're growing quickly. There'll be some big announcements coming in terms of who we hired. We are hiring, so reach out. We'll put some announcement out there now, but soon. But right now, we're just focused on this capital raise that we're in right now, which will be our seed round, and we'll be making some announcements there too, with some big names that jumped in the pool with us on this round.
Excellent. For podcast listeners, visit onrampinvest.com. That's onrampinvest.com for more information. Tyrone, before we wrap up, I think the most important aspect of this conversation has been we could help save baseball. As Nikki Clark mentioned during the broadcast, digital baseball cards are interesting. Maybe you could save a sport, Tyrone.
Yeah, let's do it. We want a piece.
Hey, listen, I appreciate you coming on this episode of Office Hours. I hope we still get to do this going forward. Twitter is changing the rules, and live broadcasts are going to be much more difficult next month. Hopefully we can find a workaround. Appreciate everybody who's been watching live on Twitter. We'll continue to do it on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Thanks again for coming on, Tyrone.
Thank you for having me. NoKidHungry.org. Please go feed a hungry child.